Right, welcome back to this week's episode. This is episode 5, I believe, and you join me at the bench as I'm making a start on the Condor Legion Bf109 E3 from Edward. So, progressing on slightly, I've only had about an hour or two on it so far. Really, it's been about cleaning up the parts. It's quite surprising. This mould must have been around a little while for Edward now, and it's showing signs. So there's been quite a lot of clean-up on this. Huge amounts of flash out here on the front of this fuselage half, and a little bit of warping, unfortunately, and some short shot even. When we got here, we got some sink marks and some short shot. Only very slightly, but you know, this bit here is cut away. There's meant to be a little bit more coming out here, and we've got a great big sink mark there. Not a massive problem, but really you expect a little bit better from Edward. And working on some of the etch parts now, so I'm just trying to get the cockpit together. We've got the seat there and a few small parts being done, cockpit sidewalls and all of that looking pretty good. And there's some grills going on at the air scoop, or the intake at the front, and we're just sort of working through it there. So everything's looking pretty good, apart from the excessive cleanup. A little bit of mould line where the mould seems to have slipped as well. But yeah, nothing that I'm not used to, but it's just I don't expect it from an Edward kit, that's all I'm saying. So enough of that, let's now have a look at what I've got for you this week. So first up, I thought it would make a nice segment if you let me know down below what you've got on the shelf hiding that's a bit of a mojo killer, and this is the one I've got. This is the Trumpeter P40, what is it, F5, no, F1 I think. It gets very confusing, that's kind of why I've lost interest in it a little bit. This is Trumpeter's new release of their 1/32 F from earlier in the year, and there was a few problems with this one. It's what's known as a short tail F, so that makes it a bit more complicated because there was only a small amount of Fs that were short tails. And then in my research I figured out that I'd found some Decals, which is this nice set here from Warbirds, with a little bit of tail art, which is nice, which I thought was for the short tails. Turns out that's probably not. This is actually for a long tail one, which is a different variant, and on it goes. I don't know enough about the subject to really be able to dial down in it, so it went on the shelf for numerous reasons. I just sort of lost interest in it. Now the good news, why I'm showing it here, is I have decided to get this one over the line now, because there's only a small amount to do. I've even done half the weathering. I've just got to really do some dust effects. I've done the panel line washes and that. Now since it's been on the shelf, we've had a seam line come back here, so this is an interesting thing. Most of you will probably know about this, but if you haven't found that in the past, this is because I've used Tamiya Extra Thin. I haven't got a good enough join, and that's continued working, so I've painted on top and added everything that's gone on to this, and then that seam has actually reappeared over time. So just in a few small areas. So what I've done is put a bit of Mr. Surfacer on and left that for a little bit. That's actually then sunk into it as well. So on top of that I've added just a bit of sprue goo. So the next thing, I've stayed in the brown for ease. So the next thing is just to sand that back lightly, and then with some blending sticks to bring that back up. Luckily I haven't glued on the propeller, so that makes life easier. Bring that back up and smooth it in all the way through here, then hit it back with some with the same brown colour which I've got. I've actually got a couple small bits of etched metal to go on here as well, like a gun sight. Then weather that back in and hopefully all will be well. At the same time I've got a spray in the exhausts here, black, and I've sprayed the exhausts separately. I think I've got, here we go, they're all on the sprues, sprayed up with, this is just Tamiya gunmetal X10, and that's just a base really, just a dark base. I'll be using pastels and stuff to bring those up. So I do want to get this one done pretty soon. As I say, I mean really, yeah, no more than 2 hours and I should be well on with this one. So it's actually been a nice build. I've done 3 parts of this. This is another thing that's weighing on me. So the 4th part is the reveal, and they were done back in March. So I've let this one go on a little bit, which I do apologise if any of you have been keeping an eye on it and looking for it. But rest assured, it is not far away. There's a nice canopy. All in all, it's been a nice build. Actually, I sort of fell out of love with it, but after I've been looking at it on the shelf and getting it back on the bench a little bit, it's actually not a bad looking bird, and all in all, I think it'll make for a very nice finish when it's done. There's the azure blue, lovely colour that. So there we go. That's one. I won't promise when that's due. I hope to, try and get that out this week, but certainly within a couple of weeks. It's not going to bother me down. So keep an eye on the channel for that one. Next up, this is a bit different, I guess, but it's certainly relevant. This is, as it says, this is the SAM magazine. I'm sure most of you are very aware of this. Scale aircraft modelling, been around for donkey's years. I've picked this one up because we've got a little insert about the Condor Legion 109s, which is very nice. It's written by a chap who's done a book on it. Now I must get his name right, so let's get to the actual bit. I'm sure it's not a problem sharing this with you. So this is David Johnston. I've just actually ordered his book, which is Eagles in... where is it? We'll get there in a minute. I think I'd have this prepared. German Eagles in Spanish Skies. There's the book. So I've just ordered that one off of Amazon. I was looking at it for a long time. I've been after it. Yeah, I've been after that book for a long time. It's just when it came out it was quite expensive, but I've noticed now it's more like it. It's a hardback book. It's about 25 quid on Amazon, so that's much more in the bracket. So here you can see, as we're looking through, we've got a nice detailed view on quite a lot of the 109s. For the most part, it seems pretty accurate from what I know about them. I'm dialing into this a little bit at the minute for reasons that we'll talk about shortly, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. And one thing about the book and also this article is we've got some previously unpublished photos, so that's quite good. Most of these seem from his own collection, so he's obviously been collecting these over the time for the book. So it's very nice. It's a nice thing to add. But after actually getting the magazine for this bit, I've then had a look through the rest of the magazine, and I must say it seems to be going through a few changes, and it seems quite good. There's quite a lot more information. It's a bit better laid out. I didn't really like the layout from back along when I used to get it occasionally. So it's looking pretty good. So if you're like me and you've sort of not really paid any attention to this magazine, it might be worth just flicking through it and giving it a little bit more of your time if you think it's something worth looking at. This isn't supplied by me at all. This is literally picked off the shelf. I just thought it was worth sharing that it's looking pretty good, and if nothing else, it's worth picking up just to have a look at Will Patterson's Spitfire there, which really is a masterpiece in my opinion. It might be a bit divisive with the amount of chipping and what's going on there, but personally I think that's extremely good. And the George is nice as well. So there you go. If you're into that, try picking it up. Running on from what I was saying about the 109s, there is a little bit of traction in the background for showcasing the earlier 109s. There's a bit going on in the background. There's a Facebook group being started by a couple of guys, and I'm an admin in one of them for the BF 109 A through to E, and then there's a separate group which I'm not on, I'm in but not part of, is F to Z I believe, and that's just trying to showcase the 109 in a little bit more light. I suppose it can be neglected. There are a lot of them around, but certainly not the earlier ones, so that's where my interest is for obvious reasons. All of them were used in Spain, but there's also some nice interesting schemes like this one that we've got here that we'll have a look at in a minute. So this is the Dora Wings Bf 109 A and B in one kit, and this is the Legion Condor boxing. So we're going to have a look at that in a minute. I'll do a review on here and then release it separately later in the week. And there's a bit more to that, so that'll be interesting to get into. But I decided while I was at it to pick up this decal sheet because I'm looking to do a 30-second 109 E3 later on next year probably. And this decal sheet was on Hanon, so I thought I'd snap it up. I didn't know if there was too many left, but it's a really great set, not only for the amount of decals that you get in there, which are printed by Cartograph. So although they look yellow with that sheet, they are very, very nicely printed. Very, very tight carrier film. They're really, really smart. So they're a nice addition. And equally, you've got a huge write-up here. So someone's done their research on these 109 E3s that were used in the Swiss Air Force. We've also got some decals for the G series, and I believe there's enough decals on that sheet for you to be able to do a huge amount of 109s. So this is by Victory Models. So you've got victorymodels.com. I don't know how available this is because this was printed in 2010, but they've got the website, so I'm sure they're worth checking out. And I just like how they've got this information. So with the Swiss 109s, you've got a few modifications. So you've got a spade grip. There's a flare launcher just at the back, which is easy enough to scratch up and scribe in. You've got a modified Swiss throttle. It's the grip for the throttle. And the iconic bulges that we can actually use. We've got the Edward one here. So these bulges here that are on the cowling, they need to come off. And then there's a couple of bulges just put back separately on the part that's just behind this bit here as well. So that's just a little bit of difference because they had some, they put different machine guns in, and then in the wing guns, they're different as well. But all very minor things. I mean, you know, it's very, very easy to sort these things out. It's just really great how they give you all the information. And in here, we've even got one of the experimental radio E3s that they did, which has got a really massive antenna there at the front. It's a really strange aircraft. They did quite a lot of things with them. And then as we go through here, you've got a nice large rundown describing each aircraft, which I just thought was really good. And then on the back here, all of this is in English. It's not different languages, and this describes everything you need to really know as far as the Swiss 109. So if it's something you're interested in, I'm not sure whether they're in other scales. I don't know if they did 72nd, 48th and 32nd, but by all means, check them out. That's victorymodels.com. Again, this is just something I've come across and I thought I'd share with you guys, so hopefully that's of interest. Here we are with a look inside the box and a quick run through of the Dora Wings Messerschmitt Bf 109. It's the A and B version are able to be built from this one, and it's in 1/48 scale. So if we have a look at the instructions first, you'll see that we've got a number of sprues running from A through to G, and a clear part on the K sprue. We've got one piece lower wing with a forward section as well, and the two upper parts of the wing as well. And we've also got photo etch, a piece of clear film, resin wheels and landing gear, and a few other small parts. So it's quite the package. There is also some film in here for masking the canopy. So as with most aircraft, we run through building up the cockpit, straight into the undercarriage, which is a bit more unusual, and then fuselage halves coming together. You can see we do have an engine. It's not really given in such a way that you can expose it, but I mean it is there, so you can do it. Horizontal stabilizers going on, and then the wing going on together. Undercarriage through, I mean you probably wouldn't follow it quite like this. I don't know if I put the undercarriage on at this stage. Then canopy with some etch parts going on the inside, and then finishing off with wing slats and the propeller. Then we've got the marking schemes. So we've got 610, which is J88 in Spain, March 1937. That's a Bf 109A. Then we've got another A, which is 615. This one is the aircraft that got captured by the Republicans in Spain. So there's a nice option there if you wanted to go with that as well. So that's 615 from the same squadron. Then we run on to some Bs, so we've got a camouflage one, well we've got two camouflage ones actually, so we've got 627 and 636, both from 1938, and they're wearing ROM 62, 63 over the blue 65. So if we have a look at the sprues first, they all come in one bag, but it's a tight bag and it's a tight box, so it's not too much of an issue. So starting off with the fuselage halves, you'll quickly realise, if you know anything about these early 109s, you've pretty much got everything in here to be able to do the V4 right the way through to a D. You would have to do some modifications for a C and a D because there is releases from the actual parent company of this for C's and D's, and there's another little sprue, but the stuff that's on there you could actually make out of what you get included in here. So the early fuselage half is very much similar to the late one from the rear portion, but it's got a different engine at the front, and more importantly it's got a different air intake, and it's quite a noticeable difference, gives it some character. So on here we've got fine recessed panel lines. There's no inside detail on the sidewalls. We've got inserts for that, much like how Edward do it. and a few small parts there rear of the cockpit and the cockpit floor. And it's very nice detail. If we zoom in a little bit, you should be able to see the panel lines running through there and a few small hatches. Barely any flash. I mean, I suppose we're looking at a short run kit here, but it doesn't really suffer from many of the problems that other short run kits do. Then we've got the wings. So as I said before, we've got part of the lower of the cowling here, and this is where the lower intake is going to go. We've got the parts for the top of the wing, as well as bracing here for where the wing joins to the fuselage. Again, fine recessed panel lining through here, and we've got a few small round hatches on the top there and similar on the bottom. It's all very, very nicely done. Again, no flash really, no massive problems, not even many mould lines. Then we've got Sprues C, which has inserts for the wheel wells, which get sandwiched between the two halves of the wings, 2-part horizontal stabilisers, a rudder, ailerons and flaps, and elevators for the horizontal stabilisers. Again, as with the rest of it, all extremely well done. Small amount of flash here, but nothing to worry about. Then on to some smaller details. So this caters for quite a lot of the cockpit. We've got a nice seat there, as well as a few other small areas where they go to making up parts for the inside of the cockpit, and a few exterior parts as well. We've got the recognisable wheels that go on the inside of the cockpit. We've got a spade grip control column, as well as hopefully the more traditional one, because the spade grip is not necessarily right for all the A's and B's and D's, but we'll keep an eye out for that. So next up, we've got a small sprue. This is G, and this caters for the large 2-bladed wooden prop. And we've got some different versions of the end of the cowling, as well as the back plate to the prop, tail wheel and exhaust stubs, which are very small on the A's and B's. They barely just poke through. Then we have sprue D here, and this caters for cowling panels with the machine gun grooves, a 2-bladed metal adjustable pitch propeller, 2-piece wheels, the air intake on the underside, the later style landing gear doors. Then we've got the long slats, which are recognisable on the A's and B's in the early variants, and then that was changed from the sort of C onwards. And then the clear part sprue. This was separately bagged. This is nice, depicting the early curved portion of the canopy, which was actually carried on through from the B up to the E. There is a part moulded onto the front of the windscreen here, so that's what we're talking about right here, this rectangle bit. And that's a raised piece on the outside of the windscreen. I'm not actually totally sure what that's for. I can't find anything in the references. Do please let me know below if you've got any ideas what that's for. I believe it's the rear part of the 2 pieces of glass on the gun sight. And that's a strange way of doing that, but I may be wrong. That may have been on the early ones, I'm not too sure. Then we've got the resin parts, and this is actually quite smart. This starts to show you some of what's actually going on here in this kit and how good it is. So we've got some nice resin wheels added with front and back detail, so that's useful. We've then got the early oil cooler, which was a very key feature to these early 109s, and it hangs from the underside of the wing, just near the wheel well. So that's a nice touch. Then we've got here, that's actually a crank handle and a few other small parts, including gun barrels, and I believe that there is a resin gun sight. So that's a nice touch. But this would have been very easy to overlook. This here is the early version of the landing gear doors. And the only real difference is that they're flat instead of being curved. So from the B onwards, they had this little notch taken out of them going upwards, but for the A, they were straight across the bottom. That's an extremely nice detail to have added to this kit. It shows you the level they've gone to try and get everything correct. And then lastly, we have a bag of bits here, which has got the decals, as well as the photo etch, which has got quite a lot of nice detail, including harnesses, instrument panel, and a few other small bits. and it's very nicely done. We've got the canopy masks here. We've got a piece of film there for the rear part of the instrument panel, and then you paint that white and that will show through. And then we've got the decal sheet. So this shows the marking options. You've got some nice strong detail there on the roundel, so that white looks very, very bold, so it shouldn't show through at all. We've only got a handful of stencil markings because there wasn't a ton on these, and then we've got the rest of the markings, and they look very good. They are in blocks of carrier film, so this 6, the roundel, and the 2 and the 7, that's in one big block, so you might want to cut around that if that's going to be an issue. But overall they look very good. I've seen them used online and they look to go on very nice with no issues. So there we go, that is the early BF109, the AB version by Dora Wings. Now this kit is a rebox completely, even with all of the extras, is a rebox of the AMG series of 109. So they did the A, B, C and D. Unfortunately the C and D hasn't shown up by Dora Wings. It's been released by AMG as a Legion Condor version and as a Luftwaffe version, but they are quite hard to get hold of. There's a couple on Hannons, but the trouble is the AMG ones are actually $49.99, which isn't too bad if you consider what you get. But if you compare it to this, I picked this up on eBay from a seller called Dave Coley, I think it is. I'll put a link in the description below because it is that good, and they're £25 delivered. Or £26. It's not very much at all, so it's half the price of the other one for literally the same kit. The only thing that's different with the AMG C and D is that little sprue, which like I said, I'm pretty sure, I think you can make a Condor Legion C out of this. Obviously you'd need markings, but they seem to be slightly different, the C's that went over there. But the only real difference is some small gun bulges for the wing guns, slats that finish sort of here, so you just have to fill that. And that's the main difference. They've got slightly more protruding exhaust stubs on the C and D. It's mainly the wing guns and the shorter slats. It's basically an E-wing, an E1 wing, and a D fuselage, which this more or less is. There's barely any notable difference. So it's something to think about. They are tricky to pick up. If you had to pay £50, you might not think so much about it. But this Dora Wings release has certainly brought them into the market. So there we go, that's the Dora Wings Messerschmitt BF109 AB. So hopefully that's been of interest and something a little bit different to share with you on this week's show. So that brings this week's show to an end. Hopefully you've enjoyed that and there's been enough to keep you entertained. It's been a bit heavy on the 109s. You know, that's never a bad thing. So just to recap, there is a couple of groups out there, so if you're interested in the 109, check out on Facebook, link in the description below, for the A2E group and the F2Z group, and that covers everything regarding the 109s. I'm going to be continuing this week with this Condor Legion from Edward. I'm considering putting it up in stages, so doing a build every week, for instance, and showing you where I get. So let me know in the comments below if that's something you'd find interesting. There's a lot going on here and it's changing every week, but you'd be happy to know, if you're worrying about me burning out, fear not, I've actually got a week off from the bench now coming up, so I'm off on a short break. Fear not, next week's show will be up well in advance of time, and it will be going up as scheduled, so stay tuned for that one. Not sure if there's going to be any sort of build videos or anything like that. If I do the 109 as a build it in stages, then one of those might be up over the next week or so. Also, if I'm able to crack on with the P40, that may be up as well. But I can't promise a ton of things at the minute, but when they're up and they're ready to go, you'll be sure to see them. So hopefully you like what's going on with the channel and you'll stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.